And when we were talking about the dive teams that we just said arrived, they are searching. Now, some might be asking, is Robert Card dead? Do they believe Robert Card is dead? What we know right now is that they are checking their bases. They said they are sending the divers in, checking every tip they can. They've gotten hundreds of tips. This does not mean they believe Card is dead. We're actually being told the power company that owns the dams on the river slowed the currents down to help the divers today. So extremely active. We do have a soundbite with Lisbon's police chief just about an hour ago describing this scene today.
Thanks, Dave.
We've been searching numerous different areas. Yes, we had numerous agencies here as well yesterday. Like I just said, we're continuing to get information. As information comes in, we're going to put all the resources we have at any tip that we can. So as we were standing here, you saw our officers leave. We've been sending officers nonstop. But right now, this is we can't get into the details of the investigation, but we wanted to focus some law enforcement expertise in this area.
Jeff Cady, I just want to tell you, he says that he wants to thank the community right now. Lisbon's police department is manned with 19 people, and they have been here in this search area. They've been out and about this whole time, the 2 days spanning now. He said the community members and businesses have actually reached out, offering to feed and help some sleep and stay just a couple hours to get rest. But we want to get some answers today. The search is extremely active here in Lisbon on 196. That's what we have right now, and we'll be live with another update very soon. For CBS 13, I'm Stephanie Grinley. Jeff Cady,
Stephanie, thank you. And real quick, just to provide a little bit of context here, we heard from Michael Sawchuk during that press conference, and he said, expect to see a lot of crews out in various spots today. Don't let that make you, panic or necessarily think or jump to any conclusions, right?
Yeah, and the big thing here, again, they're zeroing in on is the boat launch in the woods and also in the water as well.
And right now, 40-year-old Robert Card is on the run and considered armed and dangerous. Here's what we know about him at this point.
That's right. The Associated Press reporting Card had a military background with the Army Reserve. He was reportedly committed to a mental health facility for 2 weeks over the summer.
A police bulletin says he reported hearing voices and threatened to carry out a shooting at a military training base in Saco. We're told he had been living in Bowdoin and had deep ties to the community.
I know a lot of his relatives, and they're all good people. I mean, I never would have suspected anything.
He just didn't seem like that kind of individual. Like I said, people have problems, but you don't expect them to go off the deep end like that. Like I said, when I saw it on the news last night, I was shocked. I was shocked.
Well, we also are hearing from a cousin of Card who said he's going through some tough mental health issues.
He's got a lot of problems up in his head right now. One of them's schizophrenic.
Again, police are still searching for this man, Robert Card, who is considered armed and dangerous. If you see him, don't approach him and call police.
Oh, right now, some of the shooting victims have not been identified, but we are learning more about some of them.
Overnight, the superintendent of Winthrop Public Schools released a statement saying a freshman at the high school and his father were among the victims, and the uncle of another high school student was killed. Right now, we don't know their names.
We also learned that a BIW worker, Peyton Brewer Ross, was among those participating at a cornhole tournament at Chemiggy's Bar and Grill restaurant where he was killed.
Joshua Seal, who was an interpreter for Dr. Nirav Shah, also died. And the Governor Baxter School for the Deaf executive director says 4 community members died. Family members say Brian McFarland, a member of that community, passed away. And Auburn City Councilor Leroy Walker says he lost his son Joseph Walker in the shooting.
I was here for over 4 hours, found out absolutely nothing other than after 4 hours they said, well, your son is not here. It just crumbled me all over again and brought me back to just thinking how bad.
And we're also hearing from a woman who lost her sister in one of the shootings.
Bobby Nichols and her sister Tricia Asselin were bowling on different lanes when the shooting began.
I couldn't see her, and everybody was running, and I got caught in people trampling and running out, and we just kept running, and there was shots fired outside the building after, and we just kept running and running and running.
Bobby says Tricia worked at the bowling alley but had Wednesday night off. She didn't find out her sister had died until hours after the shooting. And the father of Arthur Strout says he was one of the 8 people shot and killed at Schmenge's Bar and Grill. His father says he was with his son just 10 minutes before he was shot dead. He says his son, who is a father himself, was playing pool there, but after the gunman opened fire, the family, including his brother and sister, didn't know whether he made it out alive.
Strout's father, Arthur Bernard, says, quote, doesn't have any words, but the pictures say it all about what kind of a father and man he was.
Just knowing that I was there in that few minutes, and then thinking, you know, in the end he was by himself, you know, no family. Kills you.
It's been devastating, and it's hard because, like I said, you never know what's going to happen next.
It hits home is the biggest thing, and Maine is our home.
And this tragedy is hitting Maine's deaf community extremely hard. As we said, it's a very connected group of people, and we have learned that members of that community were among those gunned down.
Now, tributes have been pouring in for the beloved interpreter Joshua Seal. His wife says he was taking part in a cornhole tournament for deaf athletes when he was killed.
We are a community, a tight-knit community, wanting to protect and support one another, and it's devastating to know that we have lost some of our most valued, most cared for and cherished individuals within our community.
And again, you may recall Seals gained attention during the pandemic as one of the lead interpreters for Governor Mills and Dr. Shaw during the daily COVID briefings from the CDC. Reagan Thibodeau is also a prominent interpreter here in Maine. She says it's so important for an interpreter to be involved anytime there's an emergency, and especially now when people are looking for information about loved ones.
We want to, as interpreters, provide access. It's sad when people overlook the deaf community because they're not valuing that ASL should be equal access to what we're seeing for those who are accessing information through English and listening.
Well, the governor of Baxter's School for the Deaf executive director tells Fox 23 and CBS 13 they lost 4 cherished community members during the Lewiston shootings, adding the lives of those lost will never be forgotten.
Some of those shot in this horrific event remain in critical condition at Central Maine Medical Center.
Yeah. Right now, we know 8 of the victims are being treated there. 3 of them are fighting for their lives in critical condition. We don't know the ages of the victims inside the hospital. Trauma teams started treating 14 gunshot victims shortly after the mass shootings began.
3 of those victims didn't make it, dying in the hospital. 2 others were transferred to other area hospitals. The chief medical officer says it's a situation they've never seen before, but his staff has been training for the worst.
It's unprecedented insofar as the severity of the injuries and certainly the attack on the community. Our team is prepared to deal with mass casualty incidents as this one was. And you know, in terms of the volume of patients that we saw of a very short period of time, that certainly rises to a level that we don't often see. We may have seen something like this just a few times in other major incidents.
All of the gunshot victims in the hospital have been identified, and their family members have been able to start visiting the hospital, calling that part of the healing process. We do have an update for you here at noon. Hannaford now says in order to serve those with critical health needs, the Cook's Corner drive-through pharmacy in Brunswick will be open today in a limited capacity through 6 o'clock tonight. Gray and Yarmouth pharmacies are also open today through 8 p.m. Some locations, though, remain closed. The company says stores in Lewiston, Auburn, Topsom, Turner, Mechanic Falls, and both in Brunswick, those stores are closed until they hear otherwise from officials. They add mental health support and resources are available to all Hannaford associates.
And by the way, there's a QR code on the screen right now for a tip line when it comes to the Lewiston shooting. Make sure and take your phone and scan it right there, and you can get more information.
And some new information from police this morning. They say they're investigating over 530 tips from the public, and this is a way that you can get that tip right to them so they can investigate it.
Absolutely. Well, it's 12:13. As we had to break, we're bringing you an update in the light of the mass shooting. The drug take-back day we had planned for today with the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office has been canceled. We'll be right back.
Now, your CBS 13 Weather Authority forecast with meteorologist Emily Santa.
Welcome back. We're in the low 70s, and that trend will continue throughout the next couple of days into early on this upcoming weekend. So we were picking up in those 70s where we left off yesterday, and like I said, that trend will continue. It's currently 72 degrees in Portland right now. This is a look at our Northport sky cam. A lot of trees out there, pretty clear for today as well. Let's take a look at temperatures around New England. We're mostly in the warm trend right now, the 60s and the 70s. Currently 68 down in Connecticut and the Hartford region, 76 over in Concord, 72 in the Portland area. And let's take a closer look at Maine specifically. We're down in 76 degrees at current time at 12:17 in Sanford, more so York County. Heading up to Freiburg, we're at 67 degrees, 69 over in Lewiston, 66 in Wiscasset. Warming up a little bit in the low 70s in central Maine. We're looking at 72 up in Augusta. Mountains and West Foothills a little bit cooler for today, will be in the upper 60s. Let's check out our highs for today. We're going to be more so a little bit warmer. Like I said, that trend will continue on. We'll see a high of around 75 degrees in Portland for today, 77 in Sanford, 77 in York. So the trend will be a little bit warmer down in southern Maine for today, 73 degrees in Freiburg, 71 in Rumford. We're sitting at 74 for a high in Lewiston as well as Augusta, 71 in Waterville. A little bit cooler over in mid-coast Maine with the help of a sea breeze, sending us down into the mid to upper 60s. So let's take a look at the rest of the day, really how the timeline weather-wise will play out. We'll really hit our daytime high of the low 70s, around 73 degrees in the Portland area towards 3 o'clock today. The sun will be out as well, warming up a little bit as well. So let's take a look down at the normal high. We're currently, the normal high is around the mid 50s, so we are abnormally warm for this time of year. When the sun sets tonight, temperatures will fall down into the mid 60s, and that trend will continue overnight as temperatures will be down in the 60s and the 50s. Taking a look at our satellite and radar right now, we have a few showers passing on through up in Jackman, Maine, but overall pretty clear for central, western, and southern Maine, parts of New Hampshire and Vermont. So let's really break down the rest of this afternoon and into the weekend. This is a look at 3 o'clock this afternoon, 72 in Portland, 68 in Lewiston, 67 over in Augusta, 63 in Rangeley. And throughout the afternoon, we'll head on down to the 60s, overnight into the 50s. We'll be waking up Saturday morning at around 53 degrees, or 56 degrees in Portland, 57 in Lewiston, 55 over in Augusta, 50s. And by midday, temperatures will really be up in the mid 70s, which is very warm. 76 in Portland, 72 in Lewiston, 73 in Augusta. Rangeley, the mountains area, is really struggling to get out of the 50s. We'll be down in the 40s by Saturday night. And here's a look at the weekend forecast. Pretty warm early on. We'll be over in the 70s. That trend will end though Saturday night into Sunday, as we are expecting a little bit of a cold front. We'll be back down to the 50s with plenty of clouds. And we do have a lot of big changes for next week weather-wise. Currently seeing a lot of highs in 60s and 70s. But when that cold front moves on through, we have some much cooler weather on the way. We're looking at temperatures in the 40s, heading on down into the 30s come mid next week as well. Let's look at the temperature trend. It's so low that it just drops about 30 degrees. So we'll be in the 70s for this weekend, heading on down into the 40s and by 30s early next week. Heading out to the coast the next couple of days, we have that dry trend starting back up. Mid next week, we have a little bit of rain for Monday, and check out those temperatures heading on down into the mid 30s, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Welcome back. We want to give a quick update if you're just tuning in. The manhunt continues for that suspect accused of killing 18 people and injuring dozens more after a mass shooting in Lewiston.
People in Androscoggin and northern Saginaw counties remain in a shelter-in-place order as crews search by land, air, and water.
This man right here on your screen is that suspect, 40-year-old Robert Card. He's wanted for murder and is considered armed and dangerous right now.
Police releasing these photos that they say show Card entering one of the businesses Wednesday night, aiming what appears to be an AR-style rifle.
According to authorities, the first shooting happened at Just-in-Time Recreation, a bowling alley just before 7 Wednesday night. About 4 miles from there, a second shooting took place at Schmenge's Bar and Grill. And in a stunning reversal, Representative Jared Golden is now backing an assault rifle ban, saying of his previous opposition to it, the time has now come for me to take responsibility for this failure.
The second-term congressman likened the weapon used in Lewiston's mass shooting to weapons of war. He's calling on Congress to ban assault rifles and says that he will work with any colleague to get this done in the time he has left in Congress.
To the people of Lewiston, my constituents throughout the 2nd District, to the families who lost loved ones, and to those who have been harmed, I ask for forgiveness and support as I seek to put an end to these terrible shootings.
CBS 13's Mel Meyer then asked Senator Collins if she would change her mind on an assault rifle ban. She says it's more important to ban high-capacity magazines, adding she supported an assault weapons ban in the past but didn't back an expansion of that law. Senator Collins has been a supporter of yellow flag laws that can lead to guns being taken away from someone who could be a risk to themselves or others. And hundreds of members of law enforcement are joining forces trying to bring this massive manhunt to an end.
Gabrielle Caracciolo is live in Lisbon with how this search compares to the ones we've seen before.
Yeah, here in Lisbon, divers are now searching the water as this is near where the suspect's car was found on Wednesday night. But law enforcement says they don't know whether or not the suspect is in the water here. As cities and towns in Maine remain in lockdown, hundreds of local, state, and federal law enforcement officials are working together to locate suspected shooter Robert Card.
So you have every available asset that's deployed, not just bodies, not just warm bodies, but you have expertise in all these different aspects of the investigation.
Retired Massachusetts State Trooper Todd McGee says each of the agencies involved in this investigation brings a unique perspective.
U.S. Marshals that are experts in tracking down fugitives. You have the resources of the FBI with all of their capabilities. You have other New England state police agencies. You have other New England municipalities for the foot and ground search. So they've covered every possible base.
The massive manhunt drawing comparisons to the days-long search for the Boston Marathon bombing suspects, when ultimately one man was killed and the other taken into custody.
This coordinated effort is on a massive scale, and I believe that's probably the biggest lesson learned from the Boston Marathon response in that investigation.
But he says now law enforcement is facing some unique challenges.
Difference is that our area where we had those lockdowns was a much more condensed area. Even though it was over multiple cities, you don't have the remote nature like you do in Maine in this particular case.
Law enforcement also has a helicopter that they're using in this area. We're told they're using sonar, and they're doing what's called a line search of the river bank, looking for that suspect in the water to see if they can end those shelter-in-place orders. Live in Lisbon, I'm Gabrielle Caracciolo. Back to you.
Gabrielle, thank you so much. And first reports of the shooting at Just-in-Time Recreation, also known as Spare Time, came in right around 6:56 p.m.
Yeah, surveillance camera captured the suspected gunman Robert Card as he opened a fire on people at the bowling alley. Our crew spoke with Justin Giray, who bought the bowling alley with his wife 2 years ago and was bowling when the gunman opened fire.
I didn't see much. I was bowling and I turned around and I heard a loud pop. I turned around and saw just an assault rifle, and it was aimed at our counter. Found some emergency exits. The place was busy. I helped get people out of the building. We lost some really, really beautiful people. Completely unnecessary, completely uncalled for. Children, place was filled with children. It's It's not fair. It's not right. And this whole community is affected by it.
Police say 7 people were shot and killed at the bowling alley, 6 men and 1 woman. And something we learned from the state police press conference this morning is that divers will be checking for evidence today on both banks of the Androscoggin River, especially in Lisbon, where Robert Card's abandoned Subaru was found.
Well, we're looking at video of the scene right now. And again, this is going to be going on during the day. They have divers that are going to be using sonar. And by the way, we got more updates on the manhunt about 2 hours ago at a press conference in Lewiston. Johnny Maffey was there for us live, and let's turn back to him. He's in Lewiston. And Johnny, did we learn anything about the shelter-in-place orders?
Well, Katie, what we learned is the shelter-in-place orders in the area do remain in effect, but they're taking it day by day, considering, they're taking everyone's considerations, the public, whether it's the safety of the public or the fact that they need to get places and trying to evaluate it each morning. Now, one note for hunting tomorrow in Maine, we're supposed to learn more a little bit later from the Department of Inland Fisheries, because as these searches are in the woods, it can be very dangerous. Again, learning more later on that, but the story today is the search does continue for Robert Card, this day 3 of the manhunt. As the search continues, the concern does grow larger. According to Maine State Police, they have received 530 tips, actually more than that, and they do appreciate any tip, whether it's a big worry or a small worry. Any lead can help them. Now, we'll show you some maps right here. This is what they were showing us at the press conference earlier this morning. It began at 10 a.m. right in Lewiston City Hall. And one of the maps they're showing you is the boat launch. That's the one in Lisbon where we were referencing the divers are heading in the water right near, because that's where Robert Card's car was found in. The others are the Schmiggy's Bar as well as the Just-in-Time Bowling Alley. Those investigations are ongoing at those two locations. Quote, every square inch of the scenes where most of the 18 victims were killed will be searched, and just 8 of those victims are still the only ones that are identified, and of course we have some info about that on our website too. Now, questions about Maine's yellow flag law and whether or not Robert Card should have guns in the first place due to those mental health concerns were asked to. Here's Commissioner Sawchuk's response.
Well, I'm heavily involved in the yellow flag conversation overall, but the reality for today is I'm not going to talk specifically about who knew what and when. We're still actively involved in a very dynamic situation here.
And so Maine State Police also told me right after the press conference that they're ruling nothing out, but they are operating as if Robert Card is in Maine. And we do have the full press conference right on our Facebook page if you just search WGME or CBS 13. Live in Lewiston outside City Hall, I'm Johnny Maffey. We'll send it back to the studio.
All right, Johnny, thanks so much for that update.
Yeah, we're checking back in with Stephanie Grinley now about the latest news from Central Maine Medical Center.
Yeah, Stephanie, it sounds like we just heard that maybe you just got an update about a victim in the hospital.
Yes, Jeff and Katie. So a spokesperson with CMMC just told me 3 of the 8 victims are in stable condition. 3 are remaining critical today. 1 was discharged yesterday and is being transported to another hospital, and 1 is likely to be discharged today. So that is the update on the victims, the 8 victims at CMMC right now. In terms of other news here, we are live at a very active scene on 196. Behind me is what Johnny just mentioned about the boat launch. It's restricted. Down you can see flashing lights of the police vehicles, and you see the cones lining 196. So that's where the boat launch, where the Subaru was left. Robert Card being searched in the area right now by air, land, and water. So in the woods to my left, there is a SWAT team that is searching and combing through the woods right now. We saw a SWAT team deployed down to the water near the Androscoggin River, where they were then taken onto boats. And then finally, we saw above us the helicopter circling so close, just right above the tree line. It was just, it's a whole presence here. We've also seen the Androscoggin County Sheriff's Office just a couple minutes ago drive right by, flashing lights, sirens on. They are heading east towards Lisbon Falls. We don't know why, but the presence is there as well. So it's full and aware and everywhere right now. They want to get this guy. What else have I not mentioned that I want to tell you? We did talk to the Lisbon police chief. He says that all the tips coming into his office and his department are helping in this investigation. Divers are now being sent out on the water. This is with Maine game warden. So with the divers, we did ask, does this mean that we think Robert Card is dead? They said they can't declare anything. They are just saying they're covering all their bases. So this is what we are doing here today, live in Lisbon, 196 for CBS 13. I'm Stephanie Grindley. We're going to continue to follow this here during the noon. Jeff and Katie, back to you.
All right, Stephanie, thanks so much. And Jeff, we're talking about transparency too. And, we heard from the Lisbon police chief. He was talking about how important that relationship, of course, is between the police department and community members and asking them for tips. And then we also heard from Michael Soschuk, and he was saying that they are committing to giving that daily briefing every single day because everyone wants some answers here.
And again, it's so important because overnight in 24 hours, they had 535 tips from the community. So that's why they need help from members of the community all over the Lewiston, Auburn, and of course, Bowdoin and also Lisbon area.
And speaking of Bowdoin, last night, a lot of the police presence was centered along a home in Bowdoin. The town is where the known suspect, Robert Card, lived.
Yeah, police served several search warrants, and there was a lot of confusion in the town and online because of loudspeaker announcements. Maine State Police say those announcements were standard when serving a warrant to ensure safety of all involved, adding they did not know if Card was in any of the homes that law enforcement searched.
The attention in Bowdoin and the speculation around what it may mean means there's still so many unknowns in the situation. And Auburn's mayor says despite the uncertainty, people need to stay alert and know the process if you see something.
Stay vigilant, practice good situational awareness at this point. Call the state police tip line. If you see anything out of the ordinary, we're focusing on Bowdoin right now and your coverage and everybody else's coverage. But that's not to say he is absolutely there. Just stay vigilant.
Well, we know Card and his family have connections in this area, but it's unclear what homes exactly were being searched in Bowdoin. Maine State Police say authorities are simply doing their due diligence by tracking down every lead in an effort to find and get them.
And right now, some of the shooting victims have not been identified, but we are learning more about some of them as well.
Yeah, overnight, the superintendent of Winthrop Public Schools again releasing a statement saying a freshman at the high school and his dad were among the victims, and the uncle of another high school student was killed. Right now, we don't know their names.
We also learned that BIW worker Peyton Brewer-Ross was among those participating at a cornhole tournament at Schmenge's Bar and Grill restaurant where he was killed. Joshua Seal, who was an interpreter for Dr. Nurav Shah, also died. The Governor Baxter School for the Deaf executive director says 4 community members were killed. Family members say Brian McFarland, a member of the deaf community, passed away.
And Auburn City Councilor Leroy Walker says he lost his son Joseph Walker in the shooting.
I was there for over 4 hours, found out absolutely nothing other than after 4 hours they said, well, your son is not here. It just crumbled me all over again and brought me back to just thinking, how bad can life be?
And we're also hearing from a woman who lost her sister in one of the shootings.
Now, Bobby Nichols and her sister, Tricia Asselin, were bowling on different lanes when the shooting began.
I couldn't see her, and everybody was running, and I got caught in people trampling and running out, and we just kept running, and there was shots fired outside the building after, and we just kept running and running and running.
Bobby says Tricia worked at the bowling alley but had Wednesday night off. She didn't find out her sister had died until hours after the shooting. And the father of Arthur Strout says he was one of 8 people shot and killed at Schmenge's Bar and Grill. His father says he was with his son just 10 minutes before he was shot dead. He says his son, who's a father himself, was playing pool there, but after the gunman opened fire, the family, including his brother and sister, didn't know whether he made it out alive.
Well, Strout's father, Arthur Bernard, says, quote, doesn't have any words, but the pictures say it all about what kind of father and man he was.
Just knowing that I was there in that few minutes, and then thinking, in the end he was by himself, no family. Kills you.
It's been devastating, and it's hard because, like I said, you never know what's going to happen next.
It hits home is the biggest thing, and Maine is our home.
And this tragedy is hitting Maine's deaf community extremely hard. It's a very connected group of people, and we have now learned members of that community are among those who were gunned down.
Yeah, tributes have been pouring in for the beloved interpreter Joshua Seal. His wife says he was taking part in a cornhole tournament for deaf athletes when he was shot and killed.
We are a community, a tight-knit community, wanting to protect and support one another, and it's devastating to know that we have lost some of our most valued, most cared for and cherished individuals within our community.
You may recall Seals gained attention during the pandemic as one of the lead interpreters for the deaf for Governor Mills and Dr. Shaw during the COVID briefings from the CDC. Reagan Thibodeau is also a prominent interpreter here in Maine. She says it is so important for an interpreter to be involved anytime there's an emergency, and especially now when people are looking for information about loved ones.
We want to, as interpreters, provide access. It's sad when people overlook the deaf community because they're not valuing that ASL should be equal access to what we're seeing for those who are accessing information through English and listening.
Well, the governor of the Baxter School for the Deaf executive director says Fox 23 and CBS 13 tells us they lost 4 cherished community members during the Lewiston shootings, adding the lives of those lost will never be forgotten. And turning back to our Lewiston coverage, Senator Angus King is speaking about how the shootings as well. We talked about firearms and the ongoing search for the suspect.
Maine has a tradition of firearm ownership and use, and all of a sudden we've got one individual out of 1.3 million who has just terrified this region. He could be in Cleveland by now. That's pretty daunting. I don't suspect that's the case, but it's a very, very dangerous situation, and I love this state, and I love these people I've formed for a long time, and this is just an awful dark day for us. I can tell you that.
Governor Janet Mills is also addressing the state. As a former resident of Lewiston, the governor says she met her husband there, saying we all need to help our communities heal.
So on behalf of the 1.3 million people of the whole state of Maine, I hold these families and this city in my heart today. I know that the people of Lewiston are enduring immeasurable pain. I wish I could take that pain off your hearts, off your shoulders, but I promise you this, we will all help you carry that grief.
She also talked about the response from Maine law enforcement, praising first responders for putting their lives at risk and saying the search for the suspect won't stop until he's in custody.
These law enforcement officers, in the face of danger, responded swiftly, selflessly, and with great bravery. There are still many things we don't yet know about these attacks, but the full weight of my administration is behind law enforcement's efforts to capture the person of interest, Robert Card, to hold whoever is responsible for this atrocity accountable under the full force of state and federal law, and to seek full justice for the victims and their families. We cannot and we will not rest in this endeavor.
As the ongoing search for the suspect continues, many Lewiston residents are still trying to process what happened Wednesday night.
I don't know, crazy to think that a lot of people have family members that they lost last night.
This place is like, it doesn't have that much people. It's like a quiet and peaceful place. I never thought this was gonna happen. It's like,
God rest the people's souls that were taken last night, and I hope everyone, I just pray for everyone in this time that.
Lewiston remains under a shelter-in-place recommendation this morning.
If you're looking for a way to help these victims, their family members, and the community, there's a Lewiston-Auburn Area Response Fund that's been established by the Maine Community Foundation in response to the shooting. Yeah, the fund will collect and allocate donations to support the victims and the organizational efforts that will help heal the city. Now, the board chair, who was a Lewiston resident, says, quote, "We are heartbroken at this unspeakable violence right here at home." The Maine Community Foundation is stepping up to help ensure that the community has the resources to respond to this terrible tragedy. Now, the group's president and CEO says, quote, "This fund provides an avenue for those who wish to help those impacted in the Lewiston-Auburn area. We must support each other and care for one another in this difficult time for our state. Donations can be made to victims and survivors or to the broader recovery effort at mainecf.org.
And of course, in 24 hours, Maine State Police and all the departments there in the search for Robert Carr, they had 535 tips.
Yeah, and they are looking for even more. So if you see something, say something, you can check out this QR code. Just scan that with your phone. That will bring you to the tip line. That's where they're recommending you share that information. If you see anything suspicious, please let them know about it.
All right, in the meantime, let's go to the forecast.
Now, your CBS 13 Weather Authority forecast with meteorologist Emily Santom.
Welcome back. It's 12:45 and still we're currently in the low 70s for today, another warm one. And that trend will continue towards early this weekend. In Portland right now, it is currently 72 degrees. The dew point's a little bit up there, bringing a little bit of a sticky feel as well, but it definitely is feeling like the low 70s for today. Let's take a look at other temperatures around our region. Down in Sanford, so more so York County, a little bit warmer. We're currently at 76 degrees, 78 down in Portsmouth. Up in Freiburg, we're a little bit cooler in the upper 60s, as well as Lewiston, 69 degrees right now, 70 up in Rumford, and we are warming up over in Augusta, more so central Maine in the low 70s. We'll mostly be in the 70s for today, a little bit cooler thanks to a sea breeze, more so in mid-coast Maine, 66 as our high in Rockland, 69 in Brunswick. Very warm in Portland for today, 75 degrees. Down in York County, 77, Sanford, 77 in York. A daytime high of 74 over in Lewiston for today, as well as Augusta. A little bit cooler up in Waterville and Rumford. We are going to be in the low 70s. So for the rest of the day, we'll mostly be hanging out in the low 70s. I think we'll reach our daytime high of around 73 degrees in the Portland metro area towards mid-afternoon. As the sun sets later on tonight, temperatures will drop into those mid to upper 60s. We'll stay pretty clear for today. Some more clouds will be relevant as we head into tomorrow. Normally at this time of year, we would be in the mid 50s, so very warm. Abnormally warm for this time of year. A couple of showers passing through the Jackman area right now, but overall pretty clear. This trend will also be with us throughout the weekend until we get to Sunday, when we have a little bit of a cold front beginning to move on through, bringing some clouds, some rain, and some cooler temperatures. So this is a look at 3 p.m. later this afternoon. 72 degrees in Portland, 68 in Lewiston, 67 in Augusta, 60 degrees over in Rockland. Rangeley will be struggling to get out of the 60s, falling to the upper 50s as we head towards dinner time tonight. This look at 7 p.m. We have a lot of clouds becoming more relevant down in York County and parts of Cumberland County as well. 62 in Portland, 62 in Lewiston for 7 o'clock tonight. As we head overnight down to those 50s, back up to the mid to upper 50s by tomorrow morning. This is a look at 7:30 tomorrow. 56 degrees in Portland, 57 in Lewiston, 55 in Augusta. Looks more so central Maine. We'll see a lot of clouds. We'll stay pretty clear for the day. By mid-afternoon, we're up in the mid to upper 70s, 76 degrees in Portland, 72 in Lewiston. Rangeley in the western mountains struggling to get out of the 50s, more so in the 60s for tomorrow. Looking at the weekend forecast, a lot of sun opening up pretty early on, mid-70s. We do have that cold front moving on through on Sunday, early Sunday morning, bringing some cooler weather. Will be down in the 50s with plenty of sun. So let's take a look at the next couple of days out on the coast. We have some warm weather now. For Sunday, we have plenty of clouds as we have that cold front moving through. A little bit of a wet situation early on next week. We'll turn dry for Halloween. It'll become mostly sunny, a little bit cooler down into those mid-50s. Wednesday, we have a chance of seeing our first snow in the mountain region, more so of a mixed precipitation, before we become more drier as temperatures head into the mid-40s.
All right, back to our coverage here now. We want to give you a quick update if you're just tuning in. That manhunt continues for the suspect accused of killing 18 people and injuring a dozen more after a mass shooting in Lewiston.
Well, people in Androscoggin and northern Saginaw counties remain in a shelter-in-place order as crews search by land, air, and water.
This man on your screen is that suspect, 40-year-old Robert Card. He's wanted for murder, 8 counts right now, and is considered armed and dangerous right now.
Police releasing these photos that they say show Card entering one of the businesses Wednesday night, aiming what appears to be an AR-style rifle.
According to authorities, the first shooting happened at Just-in-Time Recreation, a bowling alley just before 7 Wednesday night. About 4 miles away, a second shooting took place at Schmeggy's Bar and Grill. And we also want to check back in with Johnny Maffey, who has been, covering this from the very beginning, and he was at that press conference with state police this morning.
Yeah, you have some updates on the search efforts that you've been in touch with the father of one of the victims.
Yeah, good afternoon, Jeff and Katie. We will get to the victims in a moment. But as for the search, well, this morning we're talking about that scene over at the boatyard, and we were headed over the press conference, right? And we saw a caravan of police vehicles, including a big SWAT truck, heading the opposite way. So we turned on around and we found them setting up shop near the boatyard, where we keep talking about the divers going in the water. We're also told if you see some planes up there or some aircraft related to that, then they're looking to scan the area as well and sort of help with the divers. Another note is the power company that actually owns those dams is they did lower the strength of the stream to try to help divers and help law enforcement searching for everything. But this is day 3, right? And so someone at the press conference asked Maine State Police Commissioner Michael Sawchuk just about the growing concern level, and he did say there is a growing concern level each minute this happens. But as for where Robert Card might be, well, Maine State Police spokesperson Shannon Moss told me that they're ruling nothing out, but they are operating as if he is in Maine, and we keep saying that number. More than 530 tips. Well, when I spoke yesterday with Lisbon Police Chief, who is at that scene by the boatyard, Ryan McGee, Chief McGee told me that even if it's a door open that you thought might not have been open, or anything going on, a trailer might be a little messed up, or anything happening, that they do appreciate any and all tips, and they are looking after any and all tips. As for the victims, though, I spoke with Arthur Bernard this morning. He is the father of Arthur Strout, and Arthur Strout was killed at Schmeggy's when the shooter went into Striggy's. And Strout's dad tells me he was with him just 10 minutes before. He wishes he could give him a hug. He didn't have many words, but he said the smiles on his kids' faces in the pictures we're sharing says it all. And now Strout, his kids are without a father because of these terrible acts. And what their grandfather, Arthur Bernard, who I talked to, well, he said he was searching for food and everything is closed these days. I mean, the Hannafords, Katie's been giving us updates about, and in some other stores as well. Well, I contacted the Salvation Army when that happened. They said they are happy to help, and he did end up getting some help from one of the Walmart managers, gave him a little special option due to the just incredibly sad situation they're in. But Jeff and Katie, since I've been talking, just since the press conference, we've seen people on the streets. They do have hope in the community.
Yeah, it's unfathomable what these families are going through. And then you add this shelter in place, suggestion on top of that. You just hope that they're able to lean on each other and get that community support.
Yeah, and this is so important when it comes to, they've talked about Lewiston strong. We saw at the Boston Bruins game, the Bruins honoring Lewiston, saying Lewiston strong. And that's going to be the battle cry, I think, for so many people. They're talking about how this community is coming together.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Maine being such a small community, I mean, they say the phrase, right? It's one big small town, so the Bruins wouldn't see too many sales if they put that 207 jersey up for sale, but I know it would be a high percentage over here if they did. And I also, we've been talking to Auburn Mayor Jason Levesque about that strength in community, and I caught up with Mayor Shalene as well, the mayor here right in Lewiston. He was at the press conference, and he just thanks the world. He said he's heard from people across the world for all the support. So many people focused on this manhunt.
And Johnny, I know that you've also been in touch, with the Lisbon police chief. I know Stephanie also heard from him earlier, but can you talk a little bit more about some of the transparency? It sounds like the Lisbon police chief, sharing a lot just about that community and police connection and why those tips are so important from the public.
Right. Well, Katie, you bring up a very interesting point there because the tips are extremely important. And when in 2013, I know we had a story about sort of the marathon bombings and the manhunt related to that. Well, somebody noticed that their boat tarp in Massachusetts in April was a little not what it should look like. And that's how they found Dzhokhar Tsarnaev back, that was 10 years ago at this point, more than 10 years ago about this point, and it relates to that, so that's why they love every little tip. If you see something like that, it can really help. He even said, I'll quote him on this, if you don't recognize your neighbor, anything can help here. But another point I was going to make about Chief McGee is that the Maine State Police are the points of contact here for the investigation. They're not releasing a lot of details as it relates to the safety of these officers because they're going into the woods not knowing what they're seeing. Robert Card has a military background, of course, and he certainly seems like a man with a plan when it comes to all this.
And let's talk about the team effort that's involved here, not just with local officials, but federal officials as well. You can tell by the news conference yesterday and today, so many different people representing so many different agencies involved.
Yeah, that's right. In the news conference, actually, it all started today with Chief St. Pierre right here, head of the Lewiston department. He offered, thanks for everyone involved. And of course, Commissioner Soschuk took over for him with some of the more specific details. But I also talked to Chief McGee over in Lisbon, sort of about that communication because so many people are involved. And when we say we could never imagine something to happen here, well, the officers they are trained for this, despite the fact that, it hasn't really, we haven't seen something like this until now. And what he said was the communication has been great. And that's very impressive just to note that communication among, all the federal officers here, among the hundreds of officers, whether it's state or local, from right here in Maine.
Yeah, and there's so much planning behind the scenes that we don't know about, of course, for safety reasons to protect those officers.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about divers, we're talking about law enforcement officers up in helicopters. They're all over the place, scouring everything. You heard it, air, land, and sea.
Yeah, K9 units as well. Johnny, thank you so much for your insight and sharing all of those updates with us. Now let's talk about this suspect. 40-year-old Robert Card is still on the run and considered armed and dangerous. And here's what we know about him.
That's right. The Associated Press reporting he had a military background with the Army Reserve. He was reportedly committed to a mental health facility for 2 weeks over the summer.
A police bulletin says he reported hearing voices and threatened to carry out a shooting at a military training base in Saco. We're told he had been living in Bowdoin and had deep ties to the community.
I know a lot of his relatives, and they're all good people. I mean, I never would have suspected anything.
He just didn't seem like that kind of individual. Like I said, people have problems, but you don't expect them to go off the deep end like that. Like I said, when I saw it on the news last night, I was shocked.
Well, we were also hearing from a cousin of Card who said he's going through some mental health issues.
got a lot of problems up in his head right now. One of them's schizophrenic.
Well, again, Robert Card is still on the run, considered armed and dangerous. And if you see him, police are urging you, do not approach him and please call them. Now, tributes have been pouring in for the beloved interpreter Joshua Seal, gunned down in Lewiston on Wednesday.
Maine's former CDC director, Dr. Nirav Shah, is also responding on his X account. Shah says, quote, "Here's the thing about Maine. It's a small town with very long driveways. As a result, many Mainers will know someone impacted by Wednesday night's horrific events, either directly or indirectly. One of the victims was my friend and colleague, Josh Seal."
Josh was a fixture at the COVID briefings that I used to do. He was an ASL interpreter and the literal voice and face of the COVID response for the deaf community in Maine and beyond. He was a consummate professional who helped all of us navigate through a tough period.
Yeah, I marveled at his ability to interpret what we were saying at light speed, even my awful attempts at humor during dark days. He never missed a beat. He will be forever missed and always remembered as part of Maine's history. Rest in peace, Josh.
Well, the Maine Department of Health and Human Services is urging anyone affected by the shootings in Lewiston to reach out for support. DHHS says anyone struggling with their mental health could reach out to the following places by call or text. 988 is the Suicide and Behavioral Crisis Lifeline and is answered 24/7 by trained crisis specialists. Teens and young adults can contact the National Alliance on Mental Illness Teen Text Line. That's 207-515-8398. Clinicians, educators, and first responders can call the Frontline and Warm Line at 1-800-769-9819. That helps them manage the stress of responding to these disasters. You can also contact 211 for general information, including how to access certain mental health services. All of these resources provide free, confidential support. And we also want to talk about these closings. We've seen so many. I actually went to our website earlier, Jeff, and did a count, and there were more than 150 closures for today, several days after this shooting.
It looks like we're in the middle of a blizzard or something with how many closings we have, from schools to businesses. I mean, even schools in York County and Cumberland County, because of everything going on with the manhunt for Robert Card. So make sure, if you want to know the latest when it comes to even businesses that are closed, you can go to WGME.com or Fox23Maine.com for the latest.
And we've been getting some updates from Hannaford as well. You know, Johnny mentioned this too about these people struggling and they're being urged to stay inside, lock their doors, and also not having access, to these Hannaford locations. Several of them are still closed today, but they're trying to work to get people some critical, address their critical health needs with pharmacy availability as well. But you're seeing many impacts, by this as well throughout the community.
Yeah, again, it all comes down to getting their medicine.
Right.
I mean, with the pharmacy, I know we had one of them open up in that area, and they're hoping to hopefully catch him so we can get back to some kind of normalcy. We'll have to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Hey, by the way, keep it right here on CBS 13 and WGME.com for the latest on the hunt for Robert Card. We're going to be with you every step of the way.